Good morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners meeting. It's October 25th. Extra agendas are on the back table. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up, approval of minutes from October 18th.
So move.
Second.
All those, well, I can't vote. I wasn't here. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And next up, District Attorney update, Mr. Aaron Felton. Good morning, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. It's again a privilege to be here and talk about what is happening at the District Attorney's office. The most important news I have is that we often talk about staffing and our challenges that we have in filling our open positions. And I want to update on the good news is that we have both of our Deputy DA1s who we hired past the bar and are now freshly minted attorneys. And that's Connor Amundson and Shannon Clausen, who I think I've talked about before. They both passed the bar and finished, I always like to call it by the grand name of entry-level DA training put on by ODA, but we all call it baby DA school in our business. And there's also an advanced course as well. I never know what to call that because there's no comparable term like toddler DA school or anything like that. But it's a good week-long training that the DOJ puts on for new DDA1s, and they're not always freshly minted DDA1s, but it was just nice at the same time that both Connor and Shannon were finishing up the baby DA school. They got to go over to Willamette and be officially sworn in as members of the bar. I did a quick post on that on the DA's office Facebook site. And so they're both handling misdemeanor cases. Shannon has already had at least one trial, and she's prepping for another one, a DUI trial in November. Traditionally, newly started DDA1s in our office will get a misdemeanor caseload, which means driving under the influence of intoxicant cases is a heavy amount of cases that they do. Disorderly conducts, misdemeanor cases, that sort of thing, trespasses. We try to give them as many trials as we can at that level because there's no better way to learn than in the field, so to speak, in terms of trial experience. So that's good for them. We also have them doing a heavy amount of miscellaneous caseload over in C4, arraignments, sentencing, and that sort of thing. That's a big help to us so that myself and Matt Wilson and Carolyn McCarthy aren't doing so much of everything. So we're not spread so thin, so we can focus on our own trial caseloads and other administrative work as well. So that's the good news. Finish up by saying there was some new in the news. There was a major cold case that was resolved through a murder plea this week. And first of all, that is a case that we were going to go to trial on. We were prepared for trial on. Fortunately, the gentleman who pled guilty, Mr. Clifton, took accountability for that, received a life sentence with a minimum of 30 years. What that means is that he'll have to serve 30 years in prison before he can go for the parole board and seek some type of exit from prison. The reality is that that gentleman would be approximately 99 years old before he would be eligible to see the parole board. I just bring it up for a couple of reasons because really so much credit goes to the sheriff's office and their detectives and their cold case team in sticking with that case, fighting for that case, believing in that case for so long. Being on the cold case team, it's sifting through old files, and cold case teams, it's the kind of result that gives cold case teams, I think, around the country real hard to keep going because that kind of result is why you go on the cold case team. I mean, you're kind of stuck in a little tiny room away from everywhere else, going through these old cases, hoping for a break. Well, they got a break and they got a good result. Detective John Williams, who's retired now, he would come to my office and say, hey, Felton, I got this. What do you think about this? I'm like, well, I don't know, but he was dogged about that. And he and his colleagues there, as well as the FBI, were involved. And you could read about the article, some articles and some background. There was good press on that and really giving the background on it. But I think they really deserve a lot of credit for that. And this wasn't discussed at the time because I didn't want to conflate the issues, but it just happened. It wasn't planned this way, that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And this was a case of domestic violence. And it was really appropriate that this result happened during this month because we highlight and want to remember the victims of domestic violence, because domestic violence in Polk County is one of the cases we prosecute every day and significantly in significant numbers. It is a tragic, tragic occurrence in our county. And I would say it's got to be a third, almost a third of what I do every day. And that is not a statistic, but it is just an anecdote. They're bread and butter crimes. It's what we see in Polk County along with DUIs, property crimes. It's what we devote our time to doing. It's currently on my caseload. We're training one of our newer prosecutors to become well-versed in that, because it's what we see here in communities like ours. And so the Clifton case is not typical. It is an extreme case, but it's not uncommon. It is what happens if you don't focus on preventing and providing shelter and safety for victims of domestic violence, which knows no gender, knows no rules, knows no bounds. It only requires vigilance on the part of law enforcement, both to never forget the victims and to always be vigilant in anticipating and providing safety and shelter to those who may be in a domestic violence cycle. And we have great supports, not only in our law enforcement. We have people in my office devoted to that, and we have incredible victims assistance advocates who are working and providing shelter and safety for the victims. And those are, and again, across gender, no traditional victims. It happens everywhere and to everyone at all ages, all ages. We have prosecuted people who are young. We have prosecuted people who precipitate domestic violence who are in their 70s and 80s. So it is pernicious. So I thank you for this time, and I want to answer any questions you have regarding what may be happening in your DA's office. I also invite anyone to come on up, and I'd like to show you the progress on the grand jury room. It's exciting. It's going to be, I think, a real positive addition to what our public sees in terms of this county's commitment to public safety and making an environment that is open and accepting to not only to our many citizens who serve on grand jury, but the many our community partners should come and testify, but crime victims who come and speak before the grand jury. It's going to be a very warm, open, and accepting environment. And you'll see what I mean in the physical space. We've focused a lot on creating a physical space that is not intimidating, that encourages open testimony and facilitates good communications, given many of the technological advantages we have these days in terms of creating an environment that brings our community together. Well, I again appreciate the time. I've spoken too much. Can I take any questions?
Just have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Really appreciate your office's work on domestic violence issue. As you know, it's a major driver of homelessness for children, for partners, victims. And the work we are doing with the COC Homeless Alliance is trying to drive resources to Center for Hope and Safety and Sable House to expand our capacity so these folks have a place to go while they sort out the legal issues. It's also very, as you know, underreported crime. So anything we do in that prevention aspect, anything we can do in that regard, always open to that.
Commissioner Gordon, I appreciate you bringing that up because resources like Sable House, Center for Hope and Safety are two which really are our strongest allies, because one of the drivers of domestic violence in terms of not bringing people towards safety is the unseen hand of economic oppression, which is so many victims will say, well, I can't come and call the police. I can't leave my abuser because they pay the bills. I'll lose my home. All those things which create real bondage in people from leaving an unsafe situation. Sable House, Center for Hope and Safety provide, kind of break those chains because they provide resources for people to go to a safe place and find answers about rethinking their abusive environment, because they provide paths out of that abusive environment. But thank you very much for allowing me to expand upon that comment. Thanks.
What's the status of your staff?
2 new people starting. We're actually
Got
having,
that part. But what's the status of the rest of the staff team? Are you fully filled? How many positions are you down right now?
we are down one victims advocate that we have a hiring process out for right now. Yes.
All 88 seats are filled.
No, we have 2 hiring process out that we're interviewing for. We have 2 more openings.
Okay.
That we're hiring for right now. And we've had interviews last week.
Good. So you have people in the pipeline then.
Hopefully. Yeah. Sorry for me to be vague on that. We have interviewed 2 people that look promising. So.
Yeah. Well, that's better than, 6 months ago when you said nobody's entering the pipeline.
And I have a law clerk who's doing very well as well. So, as always, I appreciate the flexibility this county has given me in terms of filling positions and working creatively with people who are out there right now in terms of salary and situations. But yeah, 2 in the pipeline, and a law clerk who's doing really, really well right now. But I've got sorry, that was going to come out very badly. I have 2 we've just hired and started DDA 1 level, which are working right now. And that's been the best news I've been able to bring you in a long time.
So in terms of capacity, I think this is important, again, because we're on the record and people can witness this meeting, important for people to understand where you are right now, where your office is right now with regard to prosecution capacity versus, having to plead down cases or get to a place where you just can't take them. Do you feel comfortable at this point that you're able to prosecute at the level that you need with the staff that you have?
Let me answer that in 2 ways. Okay, it would be easy for me just to say yes and walk away from the question. We are able to find a way to prosecute the most complex cases. We will devote resources, and this county has always been able to provide me resources and has always made a commitment to provide me the resources I need, whether it's financial or otherwise, to prosecute the most complex cases. We have a couple of homicides right now, for example, which are complex, that I'm confident we'll be able to prosecute at an appropriate level. We have a couple of very complex sex abuse cases that we're going to be able to prosecute at an appropriate level. Where we are challenged right now, and putting that aside, and I can dive into what that means, but where we are challenged right now is the people we have just hired are brand new lawyers. What I have is an experience deficit that I need to grow. I cannot put a brand new deputy DA1 who has tried only a couple of cases. I will not, because it would be unethical and stupid of me to throw in a brand new lawyer in a complex Measure 11 case. That will not happen. I need to have that person grow in experience and train up towards a more complex case. So while I say I have what's necessary to do a more complex case, what that means is I have myself, I have a chief deputy with more experience. I have the ability selectively to ask for outside counsel to come in and handle a case. I mean, for example, we've had a case in the news regarding a number of cats in West Salem, and that got a lot of press. That's a complex case for different reasons. I've asked for an outside prosecutor that specializes in animal neglect and abuse cases to come in and handle that case to take that off our direct caseload, and that's happening. So we have a number of processes we can utilize to do that. I have the Department of Justice. Selectively, I can ask for an outside prosecutor. Sometimes some cases may need to be delayed in order to prioritize our time for those more complex cases. That happens. But what we are not going to do is do a do not prosecute list, for example. We're not going to sort of cull at the intake level what comes in. We will make it happen to prosecute those cases. So it's always a very, very careful process of how we assign cases, how we train folks in determining what they're ready to do at all levels. So again, that's a long answer to a short question, but I guess that's the art of management.
Okay, and I have another one specific to our challenges now with a decision.
But I'm sorry, I'm going to say, but it does not preclude me coming back to this body asking for additional positions.
And we know that that's automatic, of course.
Okay. That too is part of the art of management. I
The key is
justify them as well.
our citizens that elect us want to hear us say that we're gaining on crime and that we're defeating that, that enemy every day versus so many communities, even in this state, that are saying crime's getting the best of us. So I think my interpretation of your answer is crime is not getting the best of us. We are prosecuting these cases that are coming to your office. You're not kicking them loose because they're too complex to try or they're not worthy of the limited amount of time you have for the staff that you currently have in house. So those are my editorial words. That's my interpretation of what I heard you say. And I applaud that. Thank you. The other thing that's a really big deal for all of us right now is the decision that was made to terminate treatment protocols at the state hospital in 90 days. And so I think it's important for us to address, again, as an entire team, and we are having this conversation right now about what we're going to do in Polk County when the state hospital calls us and says, come and get them. So do you care to comment on that and take a position at all? I think it's important for all of us. I mean, personally, my position right now is no, thank you. You have not appropriately treated them for their aid and assist needs. You've met the 90-day timeline in a lot of cases. So if they are signing off on them, and I'll oversimplify this, but if they're signing off on them that they're capable and ready to aid and assist, then the court can move forward and your team can move forward. But if they don't have that, how do you actually make anything happen? And what's the potential end result for our citizens?
Well, that I don't have a quick answer to that issue. Those that are able to aid and assist that we have determined are criminally liable for their acts we are prosecuting. I know some counties where judges are just dismissing those cases. That is not this county. We seek to hold people accountable who commit crimes in this county. If ultimately the court or other entities decide they're not able to aid and assist and they go through a different process, then we work to support that process. I think our anxiety is that folks will be returned to this community without any resources that will keep the community safe or do anything that will work to improve the capacity of those folks to keep themselves safe. So we are actively involved on both ends, working to keep the community safe and working to fight for resources that will keep those individuals safe from themselves and improve their own mental health capacity. I find many of the edicts extremely frustrating and not and not in real partnership with local communities that, and we're just one. I know other communities have even less resources on Polk County to accommodate that. So we're very engaged with that conversation right now. And even on the other extreme, we have individuals, one in particular, who is accused of a very violent homicide. We've been actively engaged with fighting against that, what we anticipate may be a release from the hospital. We're working to fight against that until we can get that person supposedly able to aid and assist so that we can continue with our prosecution. So we're absolutely not, one, to your first question, throwing in the towel against crime and saying it's getting the best of it. Absolutely not. We're aggressively and continuing to fight those who commit crimes in our community. We're also aggressively working to find solutions to hold those accountable who may be being returned prematurely from the state hospital. So that's the position of the DA's office. And working with our community partners, who I know one of whom is here in the room, because we think that active, vigorous community supervision is one of the important tools this community has to keep it safe. Sir?
So we've started the talks on the levy that's going to be coming on to the public next year. And Judge Hill at our last meeting challenged you with the question: if you had the right to write your own check, at what level would your office be required so you could process 100% of the crimes?
Mm-hmm.
So with that question, how many DAs do you have up there today? And then what would you envision to be 100% effective?
Well, being 100% effective, I think that's a challenging question. I don't know that. I don't know how to define 100% effective.
I'll change it to meet the needs of our community.
I would feel very comfortable if I could have 2 to 3 more deputy district attorneys, prosecutors, and the staff to support them.
And
That's
support
two-
staff is 1 person per DA.
I would say that's 1 person per DA. Yeah. And I look at that with a growing population in that Salem area, which is one of the fastest rising communities in Oregon. And also I look at other communities growing quickly as well. All of our major cities in in Polk County are growing at a very quick rate. And also we're a community that has a highway running through it and a casino. All of these areas receive significant amounts of prosecution services. And I never use the word have crime, but all of which require prosecution services. Prosecution services don't always mean new crime. They often mean probation violations. We process those. Those take a significant amount of time. The mental health docket that we're involved in takes almost an entire prosecutor. It would be nice to have the options to continue to alternate dockets, like drug court, for example. That is something that we continue to support and want to be part of. But all of these expand. Having felony deputies to do complex sex abuse cases are full-time caseloads. So having less challenges where we have deputy DAs doing so many different types of prosecutions and are spread so thin, especially at the felony level, would be important to do. And even the misdemeanor level begins to get spread so thin as you just have more people, because they're not always Polk County residents. It's often the DUI level prosecutions come from people who don't even live in Polk County or just traveling through, getting to the coast, to the casino, and that sort of thing. So anticipating the rise in population, because I anticipate next census comes around, we're going to be over 100,000 in Polk County. And so trying to accommodate that is what I'm looking for the long range. And I myself am optimistic that the economy will improve and will come out of this, and we'll need to be prepared for that.
Anything else? Thank you. I appreciate the job you guys do.
Thank you very much. It's always a privilege to appear in front of this body.
Next up is non-listed items.
Yes, so I circulated through Nicole a template for a letter that we were asked by another county to consider signing on to, and you've been provided a copy of that. That would go to senators and representatives, the Oregon delegation, asking for assistance in delaying implementation of the NOAA NIMS biological opinion that is now part of the National Flood Insurance Program for Oregon. This is a complex issue that has been going on for many, many years. And it is, in my opinion, and the opinion of others across the state, other county leaders across the state, that it is not yet ready for implementation in Oregon. And it has not included adequate input from counties, and we're asking our delegation to please help us at including the challenges that individual counties have at implementing this, and give us a little bit more room here. It is something that does need to happen. I've had this conversation with Austin, specific to the wording of the letter, making sure that in the work that he does with FEMA and National Flood Insurance, that it fit within the scope of his office. And he said he appreciated every word in this letter, thought it was spot on, but said don't be fooled that you can keep kicking this can down the road forever. It does need to get resolved. But I think it's appropriate. Again, this came to us from Tillamook County. I support it. I think it's a good idea. I think that we need to weigh in here. This is part of what we should be doing as county commissioners. So that's my soapbox.
I support it, particularly the demand for direct and continuous involvement from counties and cities affected. So, which is a good practice in any policy implementation.
It's unanimous. I hate seeing these things drag on, and even though they want to impose this on us now, they still have work to do for descriptions of the whole bill. It's still not done. So until they have something done and complete, so we can see what it is. So I'm in support of signing the letter as well. Any other non-listed items today? Yes. Please state your name and address. Oh, you know who you are?
3 minutes, please.
And you'll have 3 minutes.
Madeline Strauss, 611 Southeast Rosewood Lane, Dallas, Oregon, 97338. As most of you know, October is National Domestic and Teen Dating Violence Month, as District Attorney Felton stated. And as a victim and now a survivor, I have some concerns that I would like to share with you guys today. First, that is always believing the victim. My case came through here in Polk County, and I have had my mom, Mandy Strauss, in the back advocate for me. And a little bit I'd like to say about that is that trauma, I don't know if you guys know much about trauma, but in the event of something like that happening, the victim and survivor is not always able to come forward and speak for themselves, and therefore they state that they would like to have an advocate. That is what I did so in my case. And the way that it went about, I believe, is completely unprofessional and inappropriate, as my mom was made fun of by the sheriff's office team, and they did not allow her to go and obtain some of the stuff that I had signed off for to have for me for my personal record. I can't remember all of the forms exactly, but I think that we can do a better job about how we treat our victims, and how, like District Attorney Felton said, that the support that they need. And one thing that can be with is just, like I said earlier, is believing them. I have not been believed. I've been laughed at. My mom has been laughed at. And Mr. Felton can't do his job correctly if he doesn't get the right and correct information from the sheriff's office. And that is what happened in this situation. And I believe many others that have come through here. And I think people need to start realizing what is going on behind the scenes and not just believing everything that comes from the top tier person in charge. That would be Sheriff Garten. Thank you.
Any other non-listed items today? Okay.
Sure, I have one that I'd like to raise real quick. I was appointed to the NACO Human Services and Education Steering Committee, and there's a legislative conference coming up in February. I'm just curious if there's any objections to me attending that conference, just for the duration of the programming. I'm gonna lay out, kind of decide on legislative priorities. We have another meeting tomorrow to kind of discuss those and some other issues related to the Community Mental Health Service Block Grant, other block grants related to mental health and addiction prevention, and a myriad of other federal issues. But it's something I'd really like to go to represent Polk County, and I'm happy to have subsequent conversations to make sure I am accurately representing Polk County.
I have no problems with it. In fact, I'm still trying to decide whether or not I want to waste $3,000 because that's what it costs.
Yeah. It's DC, so it's not cheap.
Yeah, but I've already said to you that you should do it.
Yeah.
At least once.
Okay.
I've done it multiple times. So I know that for the work that I've been in, and I'm on a couple of steering committees now, I tried to move the needle for Polk County. It's pretty tough when you're doing it at a national committee, but you should do it. And so I support it. And I expect that our budget can handle the travel.
The budget can. When is the conference though? Or do you know?
February, I want to say 11th through the 14th.
You'll miss the vote on the levy,
Call in.
but I mean, you won't be here.
Yeah.
In person.
That's a big one. I'll zoom in for that vote or submit it to the chair.
Work on the homeless, I'm in support of it also. So, yeah, working good.
Sheriff, before you go off the record.
Yes, sir.
Make an addendum.
Absolutely.
You asked me a direct question. I really should answer it. I have 7 lawyers. Yeah, myself.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Anything else? That means adjourned.